But let's get in Deven Choksey, the MD at DRChoksey Finserv, who joins us on the show. Hi, Deven. Good morning and good to see you, Ben. Well, Mr. Singh is promising great things. He's sounding very, very confident. And the good news for him is he has the industry tailwind, which could be part of the reason why he could raise this money. Otherwise, if crude oil prices were up and the travel and tourism space wasn't booming, it would be very, very difficult for him. What's your take? Do you think he can do what they did in 2015 to 2019? Or would you say, why should I get into all this hassle of outstanding dues and leverage books? Just stick to the leader. Your view on Spicejet at around 65 rupees.
Yeah, Nigel. Good morning. Well, on one side, there are promises. Definitely, I think this particular company has done it in past. They hold future as well. I think they would probably do it. There is no doubt about it. And the way in which I think they are working on the max, I guess I think they are probably right on a right track. Adding the new aircraft, a number of passenger seats getting added. At the same time, having the ground infrastructure in place, including the parking slots. I think these are some of the very fundamental things which this particular airline is already having. Uh, Fortunately, the operating cost through the ATF, I think, is remaining under control. And should it remain under control for a longer period of time, it's a big, big boost to most of the passenger aviation companies who are vulnerable to this particular cost. I think this company is probably likely to see the better times going forward. How soon, how fast, how best it will happen, I think we all will witness it. But I think the promises are there, and fortunately, the market is, I think, favoring them. Today, there is a requirement for more airlines, I think, in the country, and that's what I think is giving them chance. Indigo definitely remains the leader, and I think they have got their corrective strategy in place. Come Air India, I think they are equally, I think, well placed in this particular space now. So in my viewpoint, I think competition will always be there, but at the same time, I think the dominance of the top end of the players would be high. But at the same time, I think the last leg of the tier four legs of people or the airline companies would probably have equal chance to probably come up to a level at which they were operating in past. So Spicejet could be included in that. So we don't have the recommendation on this company, but I believe that I think as a sector, we find this is a positive trend that is going forward.
Okay, all right, Deven, stay on. We have lots of other questions for you as well, but we do need to take a very quick break. No, I think we can actually squeeze in my director tells me you can squeeze in a question before the break. Morning, Deven. So the stock in focus is Delta Corp, right? There's so much going on with the company. Now we know that finally that demerger of the real estate business is happening. They're listed separately and issue proportionate shares to investors as well. 1:1, I think, is the ratio. What do you make of everything that's been happening with Delta Corp, the GST issues which are outstanding, but they're very confident that that demand is not going to hold up, that, 22,000 crore rupee demand. And now this move towards real estate and hospitality. What's your take on the stock?
Good morning, Suji. As an outsider, I think not an investor in the company, nor I think panelist who is covering this particular company. I think as an outsider, I find that I think the restructuring that they have proposed, I think is probably working well. Demerging the hospitality part of the business and the real estate part of the business is definitely, I think, making sense because on that side of the activity, you have the support of a larger fund, I think, who would possibly, I think, fund this particular expansion or the growth that they want to bring in. And I think the gaming business part, which they are already holding it faces its own challenges at the same time. But since we don't cover enough, I think, on this subject, we'll refrain from commenting on that subject per se.
No, I've got that, Deven. Deven, good morning. Thanks for joining in. Just a quick word, Deven, on metals, which has been the big mover yesterday. The index was up about 2.5%. I think, what we saw yesterday, that we saw something similar in Europe as well, overnight as well. Of course, it all ties back to what China has done. What's your sense? What's the best way to play this? We don't know if this will be a lasting, enduring move, but maybe a tactical one. But even then, what are the best ways?
Yeah, Prashant, good morning. So leave aside China for a while. I think it definitely helps in global environment for strengthening of the commodity prices, no doubt about it. But the other factors are equally strong for Indian metal companies per se. On one side, the demand scenario remains upbeat and quite strong because of the government spending, because of the industry spending, and the larger amount of social infrastructure along with. which is coming up in the country. So to a greater extent, I think the demand scenario remains subdued. On the other side, the structural changes are happening in the energy cost. As more and more companies resort to higher amount of renewables and that too for the captive use, I believe that the cost of energy will remain under control and maybe I think it will come down eventually. If you are taking a directional call of next 3 to 5 years, I think systematically it will come down. Given that situation, your profitability in the commodity business, which is extremely important, is going to be assured. And that is what investors like. I think if they see the sustainability in the profitability, probably I think they love to buy this kind of companies. I believe that I think the structurally things are working in favor of metal as a commodity. Of course, this China liquidity booster is definitely helping stabilizing the global prices, and that should work in the near term for the companies, which up till now I think have been a little bit more circumspect about. So such situation would definitely favor, but otherwise also fundamentals are shaping up well for the metal commodity. So one should remain positive about this space, and maybe every correction or a dip may be an opportunity to add more into the portfolio for next 3 years.
Deven, I wanted to ask you about the upcoming IPOs, and the street is looking forward to them, Swiggy as well as Hyundai. Let's focus on Hyundai first, because we have a lot of listed entities that's from the auto pack. What's your view on it? And what kind of impact it can have on Maruti? I was looking at one matrix which says that a third of Maruti's volumes come in from the SUV segment, while for Hyundai it's already around two-thirds odd. So Maruti has that scope for growth. It will be better realizations if they can go to higher in terms of a contribution coming in from SUV, which will mean better profitability as well. What's your view on Hyundai, and how do you think? Would you rather prefer Maruti?
Yeah, Nigel. Well, I believe that I think both these companies will have an equal opportunity to play around. Maruti is already around at 4 lakh crore market capitalization, well positioned in most of the portfolios of the investors, including their mutual fund portfolios. Hyundai is a new paper coming up, and given the kind of inflow of money which the mutual funds are attracting, there is going to be enough space for adding one more company into the portfolio for sure. So from a perspective of, I think, buying the liquidity in the market, I think this particular answers the point here. But more importantly, on the fundamental side, I think the premiumization point that you touched upon. Maruti is certainly, I think, talking about scoring high numbers on the premiumization. And they are also talking about the penetration of EV through a very systematic ecosystem creation coming 2025. I believe that I think that's where Maruti holds an edge to an extent. But at the same time, I think this particular company is already there in the premiumization. And I think for them to get into further is definitely, I think, a good choice. Because as we are seeing the progress in the country, the consumer is moving towards the high end of the vehicles, call it SUVs, call it, I think, the better segments, I think, within that particular thing as well. So from a perspective of, I think, looking at both these companies, I would remain distinctly optimistic about the prospects of both these companies. In fact, Tata Motors, Maruti, put together, I think they are somewhere around close to 8 lakh crore worth of market capitalization. I wouldn't be surprised if Hyundai registers the case and I think goes closer into that particular territory. Maybe in the near term, I think you might have a little higher score for Hyundai and I think little lower score for Maruti as far as the stock price is concerned. But I believe that I think this particular move is likely to sustain with a high market capitalization possible for all three companies.
Nigel, I was reading this article. I think this is the Times of India. I don't have the name. It says it's interesting and maybe a little worrying at the margin as well. Offtake of SUVs priced above 20 lakh rupees is down 18% in the first 5 months of FY25.
Okay.
So looks like the big, maybe it's just sort of too much buying which has already happened. So
Indeed.
It's a bit of a cool off. I think, and stocks have done very well sort of recently, especially names like Mahindra. Maruti, maybe not that much. Mahindra has done very well. But this is something which we will pursue. So the headline struck out. I mean, SUVs priced about 20 lakh in the first 5 months. Sales are down about 18%. And I think that's a number from SIAM, which the article is actually quoting. Deven, so just a few other names I want to throw your way. Telecom, I mean, if you can weigh in, Bharti Hexacom fell sharply yesterday. It was around about 5-6%. And of course, I mean, all which is happening with Vodafone Idea and consequently implications for a name like Indus Tower. What do you like there?
Prashant, I think it's a good challenge to, I think, go into this particular space now. You already have two established leaders, the Jio and the Bharti. And I believe that I think this is where you should be help putting your, I think, focus on. Because globally also, I think if you look at the established players, first two players, I think they hold maximum amount of market share. And this is what these two companies have captured. Look at, I think, what Vodafone is doing. Look at what BSNL is doing. They are investing money in 4G to begin with, and then they will be scaling up to 5G. Yesterday was 4G, today is 5G, tomorrow is going to be 6G. The network of Jio and Bharti is ready for 6G rollout going forward, and they are already 5G rolled out. So obviously, I think to me, the companies which are basically positioning for tomorrow, they are going to be the preferred choice. Also, look at the numbers on 120,000 crore worth of revenue for Jio. There are 60,000 crore worth of EBITDA already making into this particular proposition. Rest of the companies, including Vodafone, definitely I think we have to struggle to come to the profit level first. So my take is that I think very clear choice. I think stay with the leader at this point of time. Business is likely going to grow at the compounded rate of around 18 to 20% for them. So that's where probably I think we would continue to hold the position in these leaders.
All right, Deven, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Good conversation as always. Appreciate it.